everyone's interests have to meet to do a deal. And my client might envision something's worth $40 million, 80-unit building, but the owner of that building thinks it's worth $60 million. And we can spend months doing due diligence, and it can just not happen because we don't get to the number. What you do is you pick up and you keep going.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of New York 100. Today I'm sitting next to one of the industry leaders in real estate here in New York, Jarrod. So happy to be here sitting next to you. You accumulated, this is what they say, over $2 billion in transactions here in New York.
That's correct.
Now we're going to get into that. I'm sure you want to hear about that. But first off, initially, how did you actually get into the real estate industry?
So I started at 16 years old.
16?
It was I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and one of my very good friend's mothers who had interest in real estate, and she hooked me up with a very big broker in Pennsylvania, Linda Emerson, who's still one of my mentors and spirit guides. Started working for her as an intern, and then the rest is history. We ended up going to NYU for real estate finance, and I've been now in New York working here for 15 years in the real estate industry.
Okay, but 16, at the age of 16, how did that come about at the age of 16?
I kind of just knew what I wanted to do. I love real estate. I actually thought I was going to go, at first I thought I was going to become an architect. Then I thought I was going to study law and political science and go to school and basically go into politics. But real estate was fun to me. It was intriguing. I loved looking at beautiful homes and properties, and the numbers around real estate intrigued me. So I ended up in an internship. And
I'm intrigued. So what exposed you to that? Was it just a natural affinity towards homes, or was it something that exposed you to that at such a young age experience?
I think it was probably just very basic. I loved big, beautiful homes at that point in time, and I was intrigued by that. So led me down the path of wanting to buy and sell real estate.
And then you moved here out to New York. You've been in here for over 15 years.
Yes.
And so I want to ask, so in the beginning, what about those initial transactions coming into New York? Because you were doing real estate in Pennsylvania originally.
Correct.
And then you transferred here in New York. What was one of the biggest differences? Well, obviously, New York is a massive city, but I guess what was one of the biggest differences in your mindset that you had to change when you shifted your environment?
Well, my experience in Pennsylvania was interesting because we worked on a lot of land development pieces and with big developers. And I ended up first working in New York City with other major developers, but the egos were a little bit bigger, the pocketbooks were a little bit bigger. So it was far more intense than it was with what I was used to growing up and working with those developers in Pennsylvania. But I acclimated to it very quickly because at the end of the day, being able to connect with and understand the consumer, which is really key about our industry, I was able to do from a very young age. So that was kind of how I added value when I was working for these developers, because I was able to sell, I was able to close transactions.
So tell me about the acclimation, because I've traveled to different cities, and different cities I've realized that it takes different times to acclimate. It took me much longer to get into the group here in New York. And I've learned a few things. For example, I learned, in New York City, I gotta follow up a lot more on my emails. So, what was some things that worked for you back in Pennsylvania, but oh wow, I'm in New York and I have to do this, I have to do X, Y, and Z. What were some initial things that you had to do?
For me, it was at a young age, because I moved to the city when I was about to turn 20. I actually ended up working myself through NYU, put myself through school, but I was working full time while I was doing that. And it's blind faith. When you move to New York City, you have to really think that you can conquer the world and do anything, because if you live in reality, you will not be able to survive in the city. So it's kind of deny reality until or some people say fake it till you make it, or fake it till you can fake it on a higher level. It's a little bit of just having some ego, and feeling like you can conquer the world. That's really the way that you can at least get your footing here. Otherwise, it's a tough city. It beats you up.
Okay, and that feeling mentally. So how did you develop that thought process of, I can conquer the world? Did you have to practice that, or was it a mental shift? How did you actually become that mindset?
I was very fortunate that I was around a group of people who had spent a lot of time or lived in New York for 20, 30 years. They were much my senior, and they were some of the agents that I was around in Pennsylvania, because we're not that far from New York City. Actually, we have a lot of executives that live where I grew up. And hearing from them on what the New York lifestyle is about, what the mentality is about growing up and then going into business, that was a big help for me. That helped me understand who I needed to be when I entered a room or was having a conversation or building a relationship with someone. So I kind of had a little bit of insight before coming to New York.
All right. So you moved here and you were able to acclimate, very well, very quickly, because you had some guidance coming in beforehand.
Yes.
But what actually makes New York such an attractive market?
It's dynamic, it's diverse, there's always something going on. So I mean, you're always on your toes, and that's what I like. But you have to be careful with New York, because they say you run off of the energy of the city. The city actually runs off of your energy. So you have to find time where you can kind of be quiet and reflect. If not, you're gonna go crazy. But I need stimulation. I need constant stimulation. And that's really what attracted me to this city, because there's just always something to do, always somewhere to be. And I like to be active, so it works for me.
And so tell me about that. You said you need some time to yourself. How do you actually, I guess, prepare or gear yourself for the, coming out here to the bustling city?
Well, there's things that I do personally. I mean, I meditate on a daily basis.
Okay.
I work out, which is the time for me for my brain to shut off.
Yes, exactly.
I work out a lot.
What's a lot? Like how much?
So I work out 6 times a week.
Okay.
And 4 times a week, twice a day.
Okay.
But that's just part of that's cardio, and the other one is when I hit the weights, because that's my time to just chill.
No, I got you.
But you have
how long are these sessions?
My cardio is only about 30 minutes in the morning, and then I lift for about an hour and a half in the evening with a trainer.
Okay. Because a lot of people say that they don't have enough time to work out.
If you're going to make time for it, you're going to make time for it now. I can understand why some people are so busy that they can't, but I'll mix it in the middle of the day if I have to, sometimes in the evening, and then I'll go out to dinner or come back and do work. But I always get it in. For me, I need that release. Otherwise, I'll be very stressed.
Okay. Yeah. What about some periods of time? Because I haven't been in the gym in the last 2 days. So like, what do you have days when you don't go? And what's that feeling? What's that feel like?
Now it's actually okay, and it's a relief. It's like I'm at the gym because my trainer's at the gym. Otherwise, there are days I would come home, I'd lay on the couch, I'd fall asleep, and I wouldn't get up and go anywhere. But I like to be pushed, and it's important for me to be pushed in everything that I do. So I have people around me who help to push me.
So that trainer is also like, it's that source of accountability that you need as well.
I actually started working with him about 6 months ago, and I've had trainers in the past, and I've always worked out, but the level and the intensity in what we're doing and how it's become very mental and staying on top of my game physically has drastically changed things also in my business, where I went and seeked out a life coach, which she has completely changed my world, the most amazing woman I've ever met. And I just realized that if I want to excel and be at the top of my game, I have to have experts around me who can help me do that and hold me accountable.
So, at the intro, I said, okay, this Jarrod guy, he did over $2 billion in transactions, and everything's all good. You work out every day, nice beard, you feel the frame, nice tie and everything. But tell me about, the transactions or, the projects that didn't go well. Do you have any outstanding projects that didn't go well, and what was the lessons that you learned from it?
I've had a lot of deals that have not worked. I'd say probably about 70% of them. 70%? Here's what you have to realize about real estate. You can make good money in real estate, but you're getting paid for all the deals you don't do. And I work on larger projects, I work on development projects, and over the last few years, I've gone into the commercial side of the business. So I work with and manage a couple portfolios for some of my large family office clients or investor clients. And there's a lot of things that don't happen, because at the end of the day, everyone's interests have to meet to do a deal. And my client might envision something's worth $40 million, an 80-unit building, but the owner of that building thinks it's worth $60 million. And we can spend months doing due diligence, and it can just not happen because we don't get to the number. What you do is you pick up and you keep going.
Okay.
And that's what's key about real estate in this marketplace. It's super dynamic. There are a lot of options, whether you're looking on the commercial end or even on the residential end, that you have to stay focused and you can't get emotional. It's not my job to be emotional.
Okay.
It's my job to get a transaction done.
You said there's a lot of options now. Well, New York is only growing in population. And so, I mean, from the outside looking, I'm not a professional, right? I'm asking the question because I don't know. I want to say that right now. It seems to me as options are being very limited, but you said there's a lot of options. How come? Because New York is very condensed, but you can only build upwards. You said there's a lot of options. I don't caught it. I don't really understand that.
No. I know how I'm going to answer this. I want to make sure that I get this right when it comes out. I'll wait for that to stop.
Really?
No matter what, you're always going to find a property in New York City that you like better. No matter what. I've had clients who have spent $1 million, clients who have spent $30 million. And then 6 months later, something comes online. They're like, oh my God, I want that. That's so much better than the apartment that I live in. So when I say that there's options, you have to just find something at the end of the day that meets your needs. And not all of them are going to be met. Sometimes you have to learn to sacrifice in this city. You have to learn to sacrifice when you make nearly any real estate purchase. But New York City, and it's depending on how much money you're spending, what neighborhood you want to be in, there's always more than one option. And I have to remind my clients of that because sometimes they get emotionally attached. Whether I'm selling them an apartment or I'm selling them a multifamily building, they get emotionally attached.
But you said, okay, there's a lot of options. But going back to your original lesson, so you said you've done deals, well, you had meetings, a couple of meetings, or you wanted to seek a number, they couldn't get to that number. What did you learn from that process? Was there anything that you learned?
Winston Churchill said it perfectly. He said, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Okay.
So if you're going through a real estate transaction that's not working, keep going because it's not meant to be, and there's other opportunities out there. That's the problem. People get hung up on one deal. This is a very fluid market. You cannot get hung up on one deal.
You know, this actually, I think it relates more than to just real estate. I think it relates a lot more. Even just before this, my friend called me. She's like, oh man, this guy, I've been dating him for so long. I'm like, listen man, there's more people out there. I said, open up your eyes, there's a lot. I said, you're a fine woman, you know what I mean? Just trust me, don't get hung up on one person. And I always talk to her about relationships, about like business. I'm like, I don't get hung up on one customer or one client. Because sometimes even on your end, you might say, oh man, this client, I got to focus. Has this ever happened? Oh, this client, I need to get this client. You're so focused on them that it's become this big ordeal now. And if you lose it, you kind of get in a slump. So I've learned to just, like you said, keep a level head and know that there's always more options out here. This is New York City, right?
Yes. So
you have 2 segments on your Instagram that I love. But before I even get to those segments, I want to ask you, because these are video. One is a video segment, another is your 5 points, right?
Right.
I want to get to your video segment. First off, why did you decide to create your series of real estate talk?
Most of the real estate news reporting is done by people who have never bought, sold, nor own real estate. How are you going to speak to me about real estate as an expert? You can interview people and you can collect data, but if you don't understand how to truly interpret that data and other elements from a macro and a micro level that impact the market, you can't tell me as a professional how the market is running. And because consumer sentiment, residential and commercial real estate, drives the market, I want to be a voice of reason based on facts. There's too much news out there that is not accurate and doesn't give all of the facts. So it's my goal as a professional, someone who's been in the industry, and I've done my 10,000 hours, so someone might say I'm an expert, to really give a clear, concise data that impacts how you make decisions in real estate.
And these videos, if you guys don't know, if you go on Jarrod's Instagram page, I'm going to leave the link below. 60-second video, very concise. information about the real estate market here in New York. So I've picked out a few videos that I personally like, and I just want you to kind of dive deeper into. The first one we've kind of went into a little bit, but it's what makes New York an attractive market. And you said it's a city there's always an option here, and so we kind of touched on that a little bit. You mentioned something about home ownership. Do you remember what you said with that?
So one of the things that's key about the New York City market and why it remains such a stable market is we are an under-leveraged market.
Okay.
So
now, what's under-leveraged?
So debt.
Okay.
Debt that we hold on the brick and mortar. If you look at the residential market, the average homeowner for a privately owned property has 35% equity in their property.
Okay.
The average homeowner for the U.S. has about 15% equity in their property.
Okay. And again, please, what is having more equity? What does that mean?
What that means is you are much more cushioned for a downturn in the market. So if the market were to go down 20%, that means you still have 15% equity in your property and you're not upside down on your debt or your mortgage.
Okay.
So you can still afford to own and live in that property.
Okay.
And from the commercial side, the average owner of a commercial property has owned their property for over 40 years. Most of these rental buildings, office buildings, retail buildings, they don't have a large amount of debt. And because we're under leveraged, that makes New York City a very smart market to invest in over the long term to really secure your finances, your money.
So if I own a home and if I'm in New York, this is actually kind of a selfish question. So my mom we own property in Bed-Stuy, right?
Okay.
And do we keep it or do we sell it? What do you think? Why should someone want to? I want to play both sides.
Yeah.
Why would someone want to keep their property here in New York if they own it?
Bed-Stuy is, first of all, a very good market.
Yeah.
There's still growth opportunity in that marketplace, especially in Bed-Stuy. So you can continue to gain value, or that asset could continue to appreciate. But it depends on what your goals are. Is it multifamily? Are you renting it out to someone else? Are you living in it yourself? Those would dictate whether or not you sell now and maybe reinvest in something else that would have more upside or would appreciate in value more. Or if you just stay in that property for another 5-10 years and reap the benefits of the appreciation because your carrying charges are less than they would be in terms of mortgage or your debt structure than buying something new and it being more expensive on the debt side.
What would be the argument to sell a property when? What would be the argument to sell a property in somewhere like Bed-Stuy when it is going up in value?
Number one, I need to understand what your end goal is.
Okay.
You might be someone who's retiring and wants to move out of the city or wants to use that for cash flow.
Okay.
You might, instead of selling it, want to turn it into a rental property and rent something else to capitalize on the value of the asset. You might want to cash out and reinvest that in something else or buy a new home. It would all be dependent upon what your ultimate goals are, especially if it's your home, what your living situation is going to be next after you sell it.
So back to my selfish question with my mom. This wasn't the intent. I didn't come in for free information.
I give out a lot of free advice. I don't mind.
Beautiful. So now let me just go back and ask you something. I'm but you mentioned goals. So what are some goals? So if someone does have a property, what are certain goals that people should keep in mind, or do you think people should keep in mind if they do have a property, in terms of setting future goals for how to use their property?
There's two ways to look at goal setting, and it's going to be dependent upon what marketplace you're in. If you're in the residential market, the number one goal that you should have is to be happy with where you live. Doesn't matter how much money you make, whether it's $50,000 a year or $50 million a year, your home is your sanctuary, and that's one of the reasons why it is emotional, because it's your safe place where you go to unwind. So it's important that you're happy, number one. If you're talking about a commercial development, commercial property or investment, you need to make sure that financially that property is going to help you reach your bottom line, whether it's a cap rate, whether it's an internal rate of return, or you want to have a specific cash flow. You need to, again, especially in that arena, make sure that you're making a very clear decision based on the numbers and not get tied up in the emotional aspects of owning something that's either a trophy or a flagship property.
Say, for residential is happiness, commercial is making sure it fits your financial bottom line.
Correct.
Cap rate, IRR, and cash flow.
Correct.
Beautiful. All right, so those are some of the goals that someone should have. Now, let's talk about something that everybody, whether you're a real estate owner, business owner, or entrepreneur, need to have this one skill set. So I said an S.
So you're asking me what skill set you need to have?
Rhymes with male.
Wait, say that again?
Starts with an S. Rhymes with male. Sale. Okay. So you said you're very good at. Sales.
I'm like, smells?
Yeah. Oh, come on, man. Well, personal appearance is good.
You need to have smells.
Personal appearance is good. I mean, that doesn't hurt. So let's talk about the sales. Like we're in a boardroom right now, and I'm curious because I'm quite young myself.
Yeah.
I'm very young, and so how were you able to make people take you seriously, especially when it comes to selling that residential home or something like that?
People took me, especially at a young age, they took me seriously because of a couple things. I was genuine and authentic. If I didn't know something, I said that I didn't know something. But I also knew my product. And I felt like no matter what I was selling, if I could afford to invest in it or own it, I would buy it myself. That's what helped me be very successful in sales, is I believed in my product. I knew my product and I was genuine and authentic about it. It might have been a building or an apartment that didn't have a view, and I'd walk somebody to the window and I'd go, no view? Now let's turn around and take a look at what's happening in the apartment and why this works for you based on what you've told me you need. And obviously it would have to be priced accordingly versus something that has this expansive view. So it's always just getting down to the nitty gritty. And I also, I don't sell things. I make them available. If you want it, great. If you don't want it, oh well, let's move on to the next thing. I'm never emotionally attached to, I believe in it, but I'm not emotionally attached to what I'm selling.
And you also have a different series in your Instagram. It's called Your 5 Points. Actually, before I get to that, I want to ask, why did you actually, say yes to this interview? Because I appreciate you taking the time to be here. How important is it for you to, do interviews and be involved with different media outlets?
I want to give a positive face to the real estate industry. And I've learned over the years to take my ego out of it, because ego's a good thing, ego's also a very bad thing. And to be a voice of reason and speak positively about what we do, but also be a professional, because real estate brokers get a very bad rap. Sometimes I understand why, but for the most part, we are working very hard. We don't get paid for what we're doing unless we close something. And I want to shed light on the positive factors of being a real estate broker, how structured our businesses should be and how structured they are, and that it is a real profession.
And that's what I remember what I wanted to ask you about with sales. So you said you knew your product in and out, but I want to talk to you about value and understanding your personal value, because I know for me, with my services, I'm selling video services, but I'm also selling myself. And I had to come to a point where I dramatically increased my price, and I was like, you know what? I'm worth this. This is worth this. 2019, 2020, if you don't have a video for your business, you're not in business. And it took me a while to come to grips with that. So what about you when it comes to knowing your value? How do you practice that? How do you change the mindset to say, you know what? How do you come to grips with the value of you and what you're doing?
Great question. Best question so far. I went through a few years couple years back where I really just was not intrigued with real estate and what I did on a daily basis, because for some reason for me it wasn't tangible what I was doing. And even though I was getting results, I didn't feel like I was being the best me I could possibly be. It might sound a little kind of in the clouds, but that's where my head was at the time. And within the last year, I kind of came full circle, started working with the business coach, figured out exactly what I want to do and what my path is in the industry, but there was still a question I couldn't answer. Now, I was doing it for many years, but I couldn't answer it, and it was, what is your value add? And someone asked that in an open conversation, and it wasn't directed at me, but I realized I couldn't genuinely and authentically answer that. So I went through a few months of a little bit of a struggle and lost some sleep on it because I wanted to figure out what it was. And one day it dawned on me, there's 3 things that I do that allow me to work at a very high level. One is I connect with people. 2, I connect people. And 3, people trust me. So that allows me to do a large volume of substantial business with very high-end clients. Now, the reason that that's important and why I state those 3 facts, and I state it in an open forum, is you need to figure out what helps you as a professional, no matter what you're doing, set yourself apart. But it's not just knowing your business or having your 10,000 hours or having a specific structure to execute. It has to authentically get to your core of who you are, because those 3 aspects about my life don't just work in business, they work in my personal relationships. And that's really what's key. So I'm not separating the 2, they've actually become one. So when you really get me, you get me.
Now, I'm very interested because I love to reflect. This is like my 3rd journal. I think I do a journal every year, really, you know.
Awesome.
And so I've been journaling for the past 3 years, obviously. So I write a lot, reflect a lot. And I personally would like to know, what were some of the questions that you asked yourself in order to come to grips with that solution?
Ooh, wow. Wow. One of the questions, let me think about that. There's 2 questions that I asked myself. One was, what is my perception of Jarrod? And 2 is, what is the world's perception of Jarrod?
Whoa.
So, what is my perception of me? My perception of me is that at my core, I'm a good person. I'm not perfect, but I'm a good person. And I want to be able to define what makes me a good person. Why I love people, why I love life. And what is the world's perception on Jarrod? It's kind of an interesting conclusion that I have come to, but the world doesn't care about me. What I mean by that is, and it happened to me when I was in a car going to the airport, I don't know why it clicked, but I saw this guy on a phone. He's going about his day. I'm in my cab and I thought to myself, that man does not care what I'm doing or where I'm going. And this 5,000 pound weight was lifted off my shoulder because I realized that people get so caught up in their own ego, worrying about what other people think about them when they frankly don't care. And guess what? That's okay. That released so much in me to just authentically be me and not worry about what else is going on around me.
I want to put this on record. That was probably one of the most insightful answers. I will definitely dive deep into this. My perception of me, I think I'm not 100% sure, but what other people's perception of me, that's where I struggle with. Because personally, I'm the youngest of my family, and I've had a lot of pressure on me since a young age to thrive. The aspects of me I've been struggling with, the second part. So I really want to thank you for sharing that.
A pleasure. All you can do is do the best that you can do, because that's all we're doing. And in business and in life, it's figuring out what you perceive as the next best step and being okay with that and getting it wrong and then picking up and then moving to what you perceive as the next best step. That's the only way to live life. Nothing's perfect. The universe isn't perfect, but you have to do what you think is right.
You know what, Jarrod, when I look at you and as I talk with you and all that, real estate can be very complex. I look at your videos, I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm trying to be clear.
Debt equity, I don't know what that is. But when I sit with you and talk, you make things very simple. And that's what you do in your video. Well, obviously, I'm not real estate, so doesn't matter how simple you make it, I'm not going to know. But
Gotcha.
you make things very simple. And I just like the way you kind of just break things down until it's atomic level. And that's how you're able to really understand something. So by breaking things down, you're really able to just really dive deep into concepts. So I've noticed that about you. And speaking of breaking things down, every Friday you break down 5 points.
Sometimes they're goofy points, but I break down 5 points.
So can you introduce us what your this is a general concept of what your 5 point Fridays are.
So 5 Point Friday is just what I've done over the past week, and trying to give an interesting perspective on my life and what I do. Because people are always like, what do you do for fun? Or, what do you recommend for a restaurant? You're always out and about and doing things. And by the way, I'm really not good with social media. I'm trying really hard to get better with social media, but I'm not a post every day. I'm not a selfie guy. But it was a way for me to give my contingent. And it's really just was started with my group and I expanded to social media. Kind of just insight on what I'm doing and what I think. And it's written very much so in my voice. If you read it, it's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little goofy, but I enjoy that.
That's good. And by the way, as for the social media part, listen, if social media was to die tomorrow, I really wouldn't care. I have to do it because I'm a business owner and I provide a service. Here. But if it shut down, I'm really cool with that.
Same here.
No worries with that. But you also understand that it is important. I remember I went 6 months after I had a very bad deal. Lost a lot of money. I went 6 months without doing any social media, and it really hurt my brand because it was 6 months of inactivity. That's when I realized that social media is important. How do you view that? Because you're in real estate, do you really need it? Do you don't need it? How does social media help you?
If you're in real estate, you need it.
Okay.
You need it as a real estate professional because people want to know that you have a presence and the ability to market what they're trying to sell. Okay. And for me, the 5 Point gave me a much more organic way of interacting with my audience because I was just speaking about things that happen in my life, dinners that I go to, events that I attend, events that I host, products that I consume and purchase. But I'm not just talking about real estate. There's some real estate brokers where they post, I just sold this property, and each one in front of their properties, and that's every single one of their posts, and it works for them. Some real estate brokers talk about the market. Some do video tours of properties, and that works for them. For me, I like to kind of give a much more expansive view. I'll cover real estate in my 5 points with like my property of the week, but I like to talk about other things that are just going in and on and around my life.
So I do want. I appreciate that because I don't like when I follow someone they say the same messages over and over.
Right.
So it's nice to have a refreshing content to know a little bit more about you as an individual. So excuse the fire truck in the background.
It's New York, baby. It's always noisy.
Of course. So when it comes to 5 points, this might be a little bit. Let's see. If you can break down real estate. Closing a deal here in New York into 5 steps. If you had to break down, okay, these are 5 steps of closing a deal. It could be a little bit more because it's off the top, a little bit less than off the top. But within a range of 5 steps, what will be those 5 steps to closing a deal here in New York or around the 5?
So let me give you 4 steps.
4, beautiful.
And it's the 4 pillars that we work off of as a team. My team here at Compass, Gotham Advisory Team. It's one, we think outside of the box. You have to be creative in your negotiation process, in your process of searching for a property. It's not always just going to be something that's on the market. It's picking up the phone and calling brokers that you know or clients you've worked with for product that you've sold in the past where it might be time for them to trade into something new and it fits the needs of your client that you currently have looking for a property. 2 is being able to sell no matter the challenge in the market. So it's dissecting the market, where the product is located, the size, the views, the condition, the amenities, the location in proximity to transportation and other auxiliary services. Those are really key and understanding those and those challenges. A challenge isn't always necessarily a negative thing, but to sell the property, having a clear view of that. 3 is having a network, whether it's a network of brokers, a network of investors, a network of clients, being able to tap into that network when you need a resource, whether it's a referral or you're seeking out a piece of property.
Okay.
And number 4 is management. It's expert management. It's being able to manage the entire process to make sure the right team is in place, paperwork is handled properly, and that you're negotiating and communicating on a very clear basis. Put things in writing, put things in email. Make sure you reiterate what your client has said to you so you let them know that you're actually listening. And that's really key because clients want you to hear them. So it's think outside of the box, sell in any market, no matter the challenge, have a vast network of resources and expert management.
Beautiful. I do want to thank you for taking out the time to be here.
Pleasure.
I truly appreciate it. And I do want to wrap up with just a couple of questions.
Sure.
But first off, I just want to know, is there any property that you're like, that you want to like brag about, or like any property that you sold throughout the years that was an outstanding project to you, or a very notable project? Or very notable over the years?
No.
Oh, okay.
I want to say yes to that question, but there was, and this is going to sound crazy. I'm a little numb to real estate, and I've been numb to it for a long time.
Okay.
I see so much of it, and I've done so much of it. It's transactional to me. And again, it goes back to my philosophy. It's not my job to be emotional.
Okay.
So for me, whether the transaction is $500,000 or $200 million, I don't get that wrapped up in it. I just move on to the next one.
All right, beautiful. And I don't think I even did this, so my apologies, but can you just explain the services that you provide here? Is a Compass? All right, because I'll let you explain. So what is Compass?
So Compass is a tech-enabled real estate firm. We're high-tech, high-touch. And I run a team of 12 here at Compass. We actually have a multidisciplinary platform. What that means is we do sales, leasing, property management, and investment advisement. And we do that for properties that are $500,000 up to hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay.
And different members of our team are focused on different sectors in the marketplace.
Okay.
The reason I like that and having a vast reach is I manage the team with my co-leader, Kevin, and we have oversight on what everyone's working on. And when I know what's happening in the lower end of the market versus the upper end of the market, the residential side and the commercial side, it allows me to advise my clients with a very clear understanding of the economics that are going to impact how they're investing or how they're spending their money in the market.
Okay. And so you are part of a larger, Compass is a large network here? Or?
Compass has 7,000 agents nationwide, and they are the fastest growing residential and commercial brokerage in the U.S. that is owned by a singular individual. We're a private company.
And since we're on this topic, would you mind telling the camera where people can be in direct contact with you?
So if you want to find me and get more information on the videos, the 5-Point Fridays, you can visit jarrodguyrandolph.com. That will give you direct access to me and my network.
Beautiful. So a couple questions I'd like to wrap up with. Hard work or smart work?
Smart work.
Urgency or patience?
Patience.
All right. Final question I'd like to ask all my guests. New York in one word.
I know you're going to edit the silence. I have to think about that. That is that's a good question.
New York in one word.
You want to ask me again, or you want me to just answer it?
Go ahead.
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly appreciate it. Truly appreciate you taking out the time to do this.
Pleasure.
And if you want to watch more videos, go on to greatmedia.com/New York 100. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm your host, Amadeus Frazier. This is my first time actually being so fluid with this. Thanks so much. See you guys next video. Peace and love.